Money FM 89.3, the best of Saturday mornings. Wide World on Money FM 89.3.
Welcome back to our Wide World segment. We are joined in the studio by Ukraine's ambassador to Singapore, Katerina Zelenko. Once again, Ukraine is in the news as President Trump has said he's the only person that can end the war. And also at the same time, Putin is letting him down with the whole negotiations and discussions about what's happening in Ukraine. Ambassador Zelenko, where are we with this sad, unfolding, ongoing story?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's really a great pleasure to be on your show again. Well, where we are holding the line. For Ukraine, there is no other choice. This is the only way for us to survive in this war, and this is indeed an existential war for Ukraine. But also for Russia, for Vladimir Putin. That's why we do not see any willingness from his side to bring it to an end. I can imagine that every European and every Ukrainian obviously want to see the peaceful resolution to this war. But it takes two to tango, and we are dealing with a perpetrator who is really not interested to make a difference in that. So now we are in the situation where Ukraine has to keep defending its territorial integrity, sovereignty, and take care of the safety of its people. A cold winter is ahead of us, which means we need to think about the safety of our power grids, because any blackouts or disruption of electricity supply could be possible as a result of the strikes. That's the reality on the ground.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, just to bring it up to date, as you know, NATO intercepted 3 Russian fighter jets that violated Estonia's airspace. It was a 12-minute incursion. If there is a positive, and that's not the right word, but if there is a positive to come out of it, it's reaffirmed the resolution of Europe. Let's start there. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, who's been with Ukraine from day one, shared this: we will respond to every provocation with determination. That's the EU. Then you had the British Prime Minister say, we're with Ukraine every step of the way. We are part of Europe's coalition of the willing. But interestingly, at that same press conference, it was the first time I saw President Trump looking genuinely irritated. You know, Putin has let me down personally, and things do tend to get a bit personal with the American president. Do you feel now, finally, perhaps, that Ukraine is in a position where the whole world, the nations that matter, Europe, UK, the US, are completely behind you now?
As a matter of fact, Russia's violation of the airspace of Estonia followed the episodes that we saw in Romania and in Poland before that. And this is a clear testimony to the fact that Russia is testing the waters, testing the reaction of the NATO alliance towards such provocations. How far is NATO and its allies ready to go? And in this regard, I agree with you. I really see a genuine wish to deliver a strong response to such violations. The question is how and when. We do not have time to wait. It is pretty much a déjà vu for us Ukrainians if we think about the year 2014 when Russia occupied the Ukrainian peninsula Crimea, saying, whereas the Russian propaganda kept saying, it's not us. And here we hear exactly the same mantra, it's not us. One day we will obviously hear it also from the Russian officials that it were them. And that's exactly the thing where we have to be prepared with strong responses. Strong responses, this is something which is quite comprehensive from my point of view, meaning military parties, the strengthening of defense capabilities of Ukraine as a main forepost of security in Europe nowadays, and the army that knows how to repel all these attacks.
Yeah.
Of course, economic pressure in terms of sanctions and tariffs, And, of course, a very hard work in the information domain, as we also see alongside the intensified violations of the airspace, also very intense hybrid disinformation campaign in all parts of the world led by the Russians, trying to impose their narrative that Russia is winning in the war, that it is just a matter of time, that you guys better keep low profile and let us finish the job, which is not true, because if we look at the real facts, Ukraine is still holding the ground, and we have all reasons to be optimistic, because if you even look at the recent so-called advances of the Russian troops on the Ukrainian territory.
They pushed them back. Yeah.
We've pushed them back. And now while we are speaking, the counter-offensive operation of the Ukrainian armed forces near Pokrovsk in Donbas region, which is the tensest area nowadays, is ongoing. They could gain control over 5 square kilometers of our territory, but 2 weeks ago we could regain 26 kilometers of this territory. So it's a back and forth, and we should better move ahead, strengthened by great support of our partners, and this is the only recipe to success.
We're joined in the studio by Katerina Zelenko, the Ukrainian ambassador to Singapore. This really has seemed for a while and continues to be a war of attrition. And who's going to keep the troops coming? Who's going to keep the weapons coming? The armaments coming? Is Ukraine satisfied at the moment with the current level of support that it's getting from the European Union? The U.S. has restarted sending arms within the last 6 months or 9 months to Ukraine. Is Ukraine getting what it needs in terms of weapons and support from the outside world? I know that's an ongoing challenge, but at the moment, is the country looking okay from that perspective?
If we speak about the international armed conflict at such a scale and magnitude as we have it in Ukraine, and it is arguably the most intense war since World War II that Europe has seen, it is never enough.
Yeah.
Yes, we are getting very good news from our partners, and we actually had a nice result of an outcome of the meeting of the coalition of the willing in Paris. So it looks like Ukraine is about to get more equipment needed to defend its territory. But we also have to very much count on ourselves, and we are doing a great job, I must say. Just now, our leadership announced that Ukraine is already capable to produce around 10 million drones in a year. I think we are one of the largest producers of drones globally. And most importantly, we always have to keep in mind this is a war of technologies. This is a war of drones. This is a war of cutting-edge solutions, innovations, AI-oriented equipment. So that means that we have to always adjust. And once you have created and invented something, and Ukraine, by the way, started inventing its own long-range missiles. Once you have invented something, next day something more modern and sophisticated comes on the market. Yeah. So you always have to be up to date. That means that there's no time for rest. It's just now time to increase our capabilities and to innovate, to remain innovative.
Yeah. The fortitude of the Ukrainian people has been absolutely extraordinary. As you mentioned, Ukrainian forces have pushed back many of the Russian gains over the summer. Ukrainian president just said they reclaimed 160 square kilometers of land near the eastern town of Dobropilya. So the gains are there. But I wonder about the toll. What is the mental resilience like in Ukraine right now? How are the people feeling day to day?
This is something unique about Ukraine, I must say. I was in Ukraine 1 month ago, and what I saw, and we actually had a good chance, all ambassadors of Ukraine who came for the conference, the annual ambassadors conference that we conduct every year. We got a chance not only to see each other in Kiev, but also to go to Zaporizhia. a city which is also in the eastern part of Ukraine, which is partially occupied by the Russian armed
forces. It was very
forces.
heavily hit in the past year and a half, right?
Exactly. So the regions really suffered a lot. And actually, they see the destructions on a daily basis. It's really difficult. Yeah. But if you speak to that people, if you see that underground schools that have been built over these years, when you see how proudly the citizens of Zaporizhia show the residential buildings that they managed to rebuild over 1 or 2 years so quickly to make people go back to their homes, you realize that, these guys are really invincible. And I really can say that we are still proud to have so many people on our side standing with Ukraine. Just yesterday here in Singapore, there was a screening of a film, The Ukrainian, organized by the Swedish embassy here. This is a documentary that was made by a Swedish filmmaker who lives in Singapore. We had a full house. Singaporeans, Europeans, Americans, all nationalities. And it was really such a great feeling to see that you're really not alone, that everybody acknowledges and recognizes Ukraine's resilience. It's really difficult, but for us, this is a matter of existence. Either we keep fighting or we have no cards, as President Trump puts it.
On that point, I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, and I would imagine you're going to give a very diplomatic response to this, are the Ukrainian people, do they feel like the world hasn't done enough to stand up? I mean, here, Trump invites Putin to Alaska, a red carpet ceremony, to talk and apparently get a deal, which they didn't get a deal. But do the Ukrainian people on the ground like, hey, where is everybody? Why aren't we getting more help from the rest of the world when this is a war that has implications for much of the rest of Central Europe? I mean, is there that sense that they have been forsaken in some sense to geopolitics of the day?
Well, over the past 3.5 years, Ukrainians learned that if you are not yourself able to defend yourself or to stand up to the bully, then it would be difficult to get others to join you in that. Yeah. On the other hand, all eyes are now on Europe. We see that, and I strongly believe, and I'm actually quite positive, that Europe is smart enough to reinvent itself under these dire circumstances. And we really see that the European partners from Germany, France, Great Britain, they're really trying to find ways how to increase their own defense capabilities, but also to help Ukraine, because everybody understands that unique experience that Ukraine has gained against its will, this is something we will have to share with our allies, and we are more than happy to do so. Let's see. And I always say that, if you speak about the definition of Ukraine's victory, we always have to think alongside the territorial integrity and sovereignty of states and the freedom of people and their safety and withdrawal of Russian troops and making them never even think about attacking any other sovereign country again. But one of the most important integral parts of it is also Ukraine's accession to the European Union one day and being embedded in the Western alliance and community of values and principles we all hold dear.
You're right about that. It's forced many countries in Europe, UK being one of them, to increase their own spending on their own security. It's been a wake-up call for the rest of Europe. That's where Donald Trump may have a point in the sense that you can't always rely on global power blocks. You must take care of your own security. So we get that point. But bringing it back to Asia, and again, as Glenn mentioned, you may be diplomatic. How do Ukrainians feel when they see Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, Narendra Modi at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, and they're sharing a laugh and they're joking together? Four key leaders
pledging support for each other.
Yeah, and you've got North Korea there as well. How do Ukrainians feel when they see that in regards to Asia and geopolitics generally? To Glenn's point, do they feel like they've been let down or forgotten?
Well, we live in the period of the transit of the global geopolitics. It is an obvious fact. We all see that. As a matter of fact, the setting that we saw in Beijing, it's not new. Actually, such summits already happened after 2022 in the same group of countries, including the Prime Minister of India. So that's why this is nothing new, but it is obviously time for us to understand that in this new reality of geopolitics, we have to make sure that the international law and the UN Charter will be protected. Because if they are put at stake, then I'm afraid that many countries of the world, especially smaller countries surrounded by bigger ones, who cannot feel safe. Just this and next week, we will see and hear many statements delivered by the leaders of states from the United Nations General Assembly podium, where all leaders and top diplomats of the world are gathering. We will see how the world responds to that ongoing war of aggression in Europe, because I'm quite sure it is not in the interest of many global players, because it is about the disruption of supply chains, it's about the inflation, it's about the many ways and formats of economic disruption elsewhere, which can drive migration and cause many other social problems that are not in favor of many states.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
How's President Zelensky doing? He must be exhausted. You know, every time you see him, whether he's coming to the White House or going wherever, he looks like he's just so fit for this mission, for this time and place in history. But this must be taking a toll on he and his family, and like just bearing the weight of this, and having not only the war, but having to do all the diplomacy to try to keep people involved in helping Ukraine. I would assume you've seen him and talked to him recently, perhaps at your ambassador's meeting that you referenced a short time ago. How's he doing?
Yes, all ambassadors had a chance to have a session with the president. Obviously, I can hardly imagine any leader who would like to be in his shoes these days. It is really difficult to make such tough decisions on a daily basis, being confronted by so many existential threats. But my feeling is that he is always very focused on achieving the goals. So this is something that I would really say from my experience. We all know that we live in a time of very fickle public opinion. Today, everybody speaks about Ukraine. If some disaster happens tomorrow, the news might be totally different. And in order to keep the focus on Ukraine, you always have to be vocal.
Yeah.
And sometimes inconvenient, and being all time active on social media, giving interviews, talking to the different opinion leaders.
And you've been generous with your time, not only with us over the years, but with so many in the media.
Absolutely.
Yourself,
Thank
obviously,
you.
keeping the story fresh and keeping it top of mind. I mean, it's got to be hard for all of you, right? And I would imagine your colleagues are doing it in other countries as well.
Indeed, it is. But there is one of the tools we use to achieve progress in the peaceful resolution. And I think the president is doing a great job. His team is always very active, traveling across the globe and talking to different leaders and stakeholders. And of course, we always keep in mind that it should not be seen as only Europe's problem. This is a global issue that requires a global response.
Quick final question. What's the mood like in Singapore with regards to the Ukraine conflict? You've been here for several years now. Has it changed?
I would say that humanity, this is something that never vanishes if you are a human person with the heart on the right place. So this is something which I always feel speaking with many Singaporeans, and I am always touched by that request that I get from people from different social groups, different parts of the society, offering to arrange some fundraisers, to arrange my lecture at schools or universities, just to give Ukraine an opportunity to speak out and to share the truth about what's happening. Because exactly now, this is the time where we have to be vigilant, where we have to keep the critical thinking about what's happening, and always believe in Ukraine.
Thank you so much once again for being with us, Katerina Zelenko, the Ukrainian ambassador to Singapore. Always a pleasure to have you. Neil and I both look forward to the day when we can have you on just to talk about fun things and, Ukrainian culture and food and whatever, and not have to talk about this forsaken war that is just entirely encapsulating our discussions.
But it's important we keep it front and center.
This day will inevitably come.
We will absolutely keep the war front and center, but we want to have a time to talk with you about other things too.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.